I have 4 of Dr. David Duke's books sitting here on my desk. Jewish Supremacism, they're autographed by Dr. David Duke. I'm going to be giving those away, as well as Occupied Blu-rays. We want these in every home in America. Stew Crew t-shirts. Join the Stew Crew. $3 off your first month throughout the entire month of April. Just go to stewpeters.com, click on that support subscribe button, or click on the red Stew Crew button below any one of these Rumble videos. So over the past couple of years, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has attracted a pretty big political following in this country. He's positioned himself as this major player in the medical freedom and truth movements. He has positioned himself as someone to lead the fight to stop the poisoning of the American people, the corruption of our food and our water and our medical supplies. And then he's used that position to rise to one of the highest posts in all of American government as Donald Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary. And now that he's gotten into that position, he's a completely different person. He went from claiming to be some kind of vaccine truth teller to helping the feds and big pharma shove MMR shots into the arms of kids all over the country. And now he's bragging about it because he's a complete and total fraud. Tried to warn you. I tried to warn you, but people don't want to listen because he's in Trump's orbit. You know, and Daddy Trump, he would never do anything to hurt Americans, despite the fact that he shut down our economy, despite the fact that as one of his biggest accomplishments, he still touts Operation Warp Speed as he pats himself on the back and tells you to go and get your next booster. It's disgusting. But just this week, Kennedy took to X to address his recent vaccine deployment in Texas, where kids have died of the very same shot that he's sending in. But RFK, he doesn't seem to mind. He thinks that all of this makes him a hero. His post reads in part, quote, "In early March, I deployed a CDC team to bolster local and state capacity for response across multiple Texas regions, supply pharmacies, and Texas-run clinics with needed MMR vaccines and other medicines and medical supplies. Work with local schools and healthcare facilities to support contact investigations and to reach out to communities, including faith leaders, to answer any questions or respond to locations seeking healthcare." End quote. So yeah, he sent a bunch of vaccines down there. Vaccines. And then kids who were already sick started getting pumped full of this MMR and they died. Nevertheless, Kennedy's post went on to claim that, quote, "the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine." End quote. So look, if you haven't figured it out yet, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a complete and total fraud. This guy is not looking out for your health. He is not looking out for the health of your family or your kids or your friends or your community. He's not looking out for the health of your mother and your father and your son and your daughter. This guy sold out. If he was ever even real to begin with. And now in exchange for a cabinet position in the Trump administration, he's helping Big Pharma pump kids full of deadly poison, pump this entire country full of deadly poison for that matter. How long is it going to be before RFK just comes out and says, yeah, you know what, on second thought, we should start sticking bird flu jabs in the arms of Americans, in the bodies of every farm animal in this country? The bottom line is it wouldn't take much to get him to do that, especially if recent reports that he's been completely compromised ring true, which we think that they do. After all, this guy takes pictures with Rabbi Shmuley. So just like Donald Trump, who I've been trying to warn you about, RFK Jr. is the same. He has been nothing but a massive political rug pull. But this could end up being one of the deadliest heel turns in American political history because, again, this guy is the Health and Human Services Secretary. He was a Trojan horse. He ran on medical freedom, and now he's carrying out medical policy as Big Pharma's bitch. The bottom line is he's a killer. Where's all the food dye bans, by the way? Where's all these vaccine investigations? Well, I'm going to tell you something. There aren't any. He's just picking up where Biden's guy left off, just like they always do. And our next guest knows all about that. His name is Harry Fisher. Harry knows all too well the horrors of the COVID scamdemic and the vaccine bioweapon genocide that left a string of dead and dying Americans all across this country and a string of dead and dying people of all stripes all around this world because during the scamdemic, Harry was a paramedic. He's still a paramedic. He was on the front lines. He saw what happened firsthand, and then he wrote a book about it. It's called Safe and Effective for Profit, A Paramedic Story Exposing American Genocide. You should get the book. Make sure that your parents get it too. They're considering getting their next booster. This book takes a deep dive into horror stories from the scamdemic front lines. It also takes a look at how medical personnel and emergency responders, even those who have the best of intentions in their hearts, have had their minds completely fucked up by this big money, big pharma system of healthcare that we have in this country. And as a result, have been used as the point men for genocide, like they were during COVID, and just like they'll continue to be in the name of whatever fake disease is thrown at us next. He's with us now for more discussion on this. Harry, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm highly concerned with you with everything that we're watching. I had hope. I mean, I really was one of those people that had hope watching Kennedy come in and seeing his latest tweet. That was disheartening, to say the least. That was pretty bad.
So, I mean, what do you think's really going on here? I know that you're a guy who opines on what you saw front lines, but I mean, what are your thoughts on the big picture?
Regulatory capture is real. I mean, it's strange because I've been on Children's Health Defense. I've been speaking out for, years now, seems like hundreds of years, because we've been watching genocide occur. We've been watching the worst of the worst happen. And I'm still working as a paramedic, still seeing vaccine injury, still seeing sudden death. So these COVID shots should have been pulled immediately. But they're still being pushed. And then to see him say, you know, the best way to stop measles is the measles vaccine, the MMR vaccine, whenever we have autism rates like 1 in 36 right now. I've got an autistic child. Like it's mind boggling and it's aggravating. Just
you said that you have an autistic child?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you attribute your child's autism to one of these childhood vaccines?
Yes. Me not being woke up enough to realize what was occurring helped cause my child to have autism. And I wrote about that. If you get a second, it's hard to go into because you feel like as a parent, you failed your child. And then you start realizing that not only did you fail your child, but our system tried to harm us and is still trying to harm us. And to see someone like Kennedy push for something that he knows all too well is harming children, it's unnerving.
Well, I mean, don't beat yourself up. Your story is repeated a million times, hundreds of millions of times. How do you know? You're doing what you think is best for your kids.
Within days, your child starts not acting normal, starts looking off into the distance, these blank stares. You as a parent, anyone who's out there who's a dad, you can tell a change in your child, especially mothers. I mean, you can tell that change in your child. And you just start seeing that happen. Then I even went through the conversations with my wife at the time. Hey, there's something different. Something's going on. And then you have some people might have arguments because you don't ever, like, she didn't want to admit that our child, there was something going on. So it took probably a year of us back and forth saying there's a problem before she even finally recognized that there was an issue. And he's now 8 years old and just barely verbal, with a lot of speech therapy. It's been a horrific time. I'm not one of those people that you know prides in, like, I love my autistic child, but I'm not one of those. It's like, oh, autism's great. No, autism is brain damage. I mean, it's damage caused by a pharmaceutical industry.
With over a decade of experience helping Americans become self-reliant, 4Patriots is a trusted name in the preparedness industry. They've sold over
It doesn't care if you live or die, and definitely makes money off of profits off of your damage. And I'm still working within the system. I'm still watching this occur. And with the COVID shots, it's even more drastic. It's sudden deaths, it's aortic aneurysms, aortic dissections. I've seen 20-year-olds come into ERs with chest pain and die at the door of an ER after they're dismissed because they're 20, and 20-year-olds don't have heart issues. I've seen them die right as they're walking out after they've been dismissed from ERs, because back before COVID-19 vaccines, 20-year-olds typically didn't have heart attacks. They didn't have aortic dissections. And
The
then this stuff
gaslighting
started
is
happening.
unbelievable, though, isn't it? I mean, look at what the media has done. They just talk about these heart conditions in young and athletic and healthy kids, basically young adults, specifically young males, as if this has been just going on forever.
Yeah, that's what they say. And then they'll gang stalk you online. If you've been fighting the battle and fighting this war, it's a war. If you've been fighting this war online, you'll notice that there's gang stalkers out there that are just pushing the pharmaceutical message, and they'll try to gaslight you into oblivion. And all I can say to that is you keep pushing forward. You realize what your eyes are seeing, and then don't let anybody tell you you're not seeing what's in front of your eyes,
Yeah, we
especially
say
if
the
you're in the
same
medical
thing all the
field.
time about the genocide that's happening over in Gaza. Like, I mean, how can you look at all this and just be like, well, yeah, I mean, this is going on. It doesn't matter what the White House says. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. It doesn't matter what Pete Hegseth says. You're bombing the hell out of little kids. Well, here in our country, we're bombing the hell out of them intravenously. You know, we're deploying weapons of biowarfare. And RFK is doing this. Why are people like, yeah, RFK is great? Wait a minute. You don't see that literally just a year, 2 years ago, this guy positioned himself as the anti-vaxxer. Like, I'm going to come in here and get rid of all this and ban all of that and our food and the dyes and everything else. We're going to really scrutinize vaccines. We're going to launch these investigations of what happened during the COVID pandemic. And then once you realize what happened during COVID, it's pretty obvious that you can rewind and look at what these things have been doing. Over the last 40 years, that's when I believe that this MMR technology, you know, came about to the public. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been about 40 years. And if you look at the autism charts in America, they're directly correlated. There was an explosion that started about 40 years ago at the same time that this MMR shot was released. And now Kennedy is saying, go and get your MMR shots. He's a killer. I mean, why can't we just say the truth?
Well, there's a lot of people that are hoping that he's playing the long game. There's a lot of excuses being made and all of that. And I would rather hold someone's feet to the fire. I mean, if the Kennedy that I knew pre the office would have wanted me to hold his feet to the fire, and I will continue to do so. That's the Kennedy that I watched and appreciated. And the Children's Health Defense people are still actually going out and saying, if you look at their tweets, they're saying right now completely opposite of what Kennedy is saying. So it's a complete mind screw. That being said, as far as your other question, I liken it all to whenever I did CPR in a Pfizer line, when they first started giving the Pfizer shots out, I called them Pfizer lines when they lined up people like cattle to give this experimental shot.
Mm-hmm.
I got called, 911 call. Someone died after taking their shot. Not old. They weren't old at all. And she died. I couldn't get her back. I worked and worked in front of all these people that were just standing in line waiting to get their shot that this person just took. And to me, that's the general public. The general public will stand there, watch carnage occur, and wait in line for their shot just to keep going about their day. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a society that's been abused so bad, mentally and physically and spiritually abused, that they can watch the carnage occur overseas or watch the carnage occur with their family members, and they'll shut up, sit down, and just take their shot.
And then make excuses for it because it was Donald Trump's shot.
Sadly.
My dad did it. My dad went and got the shot because Donald Trump told him to. He hasn't been healthy since. He didn't go and get the second and third shot. He didn't go and get all the boosters, and thank God he's still here. But he's dealing with chronic issues, you know, coughs, wheezing, can't sleep at night, joint pain, ligament pain. He gets headaches constantly. None of this was ever the case with my dad before the shot. And he still will not admit that it was the shot because, you know, Donald Trump would never push something or release something that could be dangerous for Americans. He's an America First guy. I mean, these boomers are a big problem. And they were leading their grandchildren, and Gen Xers were leading their children. Zoomers were standing in line to get this shot, people who really believed in Donald Trump. But now I think that people are really waking up to it, and they're kind of looking at Kennedy with a crooked eye like, why are you doing this? And then over here, we're just saying, hey, you're a killer. You know what these shots are doing, and you're pushing them anyways. You're a killer, and you should be tried for crimes against humanity. These MMR shots and all this technology, they should be banned completely. There should be no more injections into the arms of our children until we have domestic manufacturing of these so-called vaccines, and there's quality assurance testing. Not to mention, you have God-given immunity. Okay, I don't see measles outbreaks all over the place. So this fear porn and all of this panic that he's introducing is astroturf. It's not organic. It's fake. There's not measles outbreaks all over the place. Do you agree with that? I mean, this is all manufactured crisis.
I haven't ran any measles call. I'm still working 911, and I haven't seen one measles case, and I'm not far from Texas. And I've got family in Texas. We're not seeing measles cases all over the place. It's
Maybe we should stop bringing the human walking bioweapons in from the third world all over the place.
Heck, at this point, we should start realizing that we've created human walking bioweapons by completely destroying people's immune systems with COVID-19 experimental gene therapy. I mean, we've destroyed people's immune systems. I've got a partner who's an EMT who's had COVID 10 times, took 3 boosters, and has finally realized, holy crap, I'm going to stop taking the boosters because they've had COVID 10 times while taking boosters. Like it's taken a while for people to wake up, but that's a 20-year-old kid that's a partner of mine that looks like a 30-year-old at this point because they're sick all the time.
Can't help them.
It's just the only way I can see to help people at this point is to keep speaking truth, keep going call to call, and keep explaining to people whenever I see it. This could. Have you ever thought that this could be a vaccine injury? When did you take your last vaccine? When did you take the COVID shot? You're 21 years old and you've had a heart attack. When did you have the COVID shot? I don't even have to ask if they had the COVID shot anymore. If I hear you're 21 years old and you've had a heart attack, I just say, when did you take the COVID shot? And they'll typically tell me that they took it, and it was either a month to 6 months before they had their heart attack or stroke. There's another EMT that works with us that had 3 strokes, and they're under 30 years old, and that was after their second COVID shot. Like this isn't just 1 in a million. This is people that I work with on a daily basis that are experiencing life-changing things. These are people that I run on a daily basis that are experiencing life-changing issues, problems, diseases that they would have never had to experience before. All of this gene therapy, this experiment, this genocide.
I got to get going, but I'm just curious. When you were giving CPR or, life-saving measures to this person in line getting their COVID shot, did the rest of the people, were they like, this, I'm not doing this? And
No, they stood there. They stood there and waited. I looked over my shoulder at one point because it was it got real surreal because the nurse that was giving the shots, that gave the shots to this particular person, walked up to me and said, quote, this is a quote, "This is the second one in 2 weeks." So as far as I know, there's at least 2 that had died after taking their shot within 2 weeks in that one makeshift Pfizer clinic. And I looked over my shoulder and people were just standing there like deer in the headlights waiting. I didn't see one person running for their life. And if I had known better at the time, if I had maybe standing up and screaming, "Why are y'all still here?" But I've played all the scenarios out of my mind, and I don't think I could have made any better of difference than you seeing me not being able to save someone. It's sort of scary when you think about it. I don't like to push fear because you're not supposed to be afraid, but you are supposed to be aware.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be afraid, but you're also not supposed to be a retard.
Yes, you're not supposed to be that.
They just shut down my account. I found a 2-minute phone trick that quietly pulls in up to $1,200 a day, even while
reckless and stupid and irresponsible. Yeah, this guy just died over here right after taking this Pfizer shot. Oh, the second in 2 weeks? Yeah, let me bring my kid to the front of the line. These people were physically fighting to get their kids to the front of the lines for these stupid Pfizer shots and Moderna shots.
For a jelly donut.
Johnson. For a jelly donut or for a ticket to a Mets game. Who wants to go and see the Mets anyways? Which, by the way, is the same reward that they were giving to illegal alien invaders in this country if they showed up for their deportation hearings. Here, I promise, if you show up, you get to go to a Mets game.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely unbelievable.
Really
Think
is.
about that, though. I mean, people are watching someone die.
Yeah.
And they know it's that thing that killed them. And then they're going to go and do that thing. Like, how do you help somebody like that? How
whenever
can
I go
you
back,
reach somebody like that?
Then when I go back to work, because they were trying to push at the same time this was occurring, they were trying to push the shots on us. And then whenever I go back to work and they've got a table lined up in our station where we pull through to pull our ambulances to get out and get off work, and they're going, "Do you want to take your COVID shot today?" And I'm like, hell no, I'm not taking that thing. I just ran someone that died. And then I try to tell my supervisors what I just ran, and they still are just willing to give it to their employees because they didn't want to think that it could be possible that it was dangerous. They were told on the TV that it was safe. And then
Well, not
watching
only that,
the
but they were
evolution,
threatened with funding reduction and cuts. You
all
know,
of
they
the
were
above.
threatened with demotions or being fired and all of that. These people are self-preservationists. That's what they are. And, you know, I mean, to a certain extent, I understand self-preservation. Don't be reckless. Don't be stupid. But, you know, there comes a point where, look, I made a career choice that I'm going to go and put my life on the line to save others. You do it every day as a paramedic. Firefighters do it. These cops out here do it. That's really why you got into the business, right? So at what point do you say, yeah, my self-preservation is not the top priority here? Doing my job, which is saving lives, is the top priority. I'm not going to make my employees take this. I'm going to tell them to run as far away from it as humanly possible. I'm not going to make my pilots, if you're Delta or United or American, I'm not going to make them wear these masks that inhibit oxygen, that are riddled with bacteria and that cause hypoxia at altitude. It's fucking stupid. People shouldn't be doing these things. And everybody knew it, but they did it anyways, which makes it evil, intentional. It makes it murder. Really.
Yes.
They're complicit in murder.
Yes, and I see it every single time I go to work.
Harry, thank you so much for all the work that you have done and for being here today. We appreciate it. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you, brother.
Of course. Go and get Harry's book. It's called Safe and Effective for Profit, a paramedic story exposing American genocide. This conversation just kind of went away about all of these shots. So we really actually do appreciate RFK Jr. being the snake in the grass that we always knew that he was, raising his little slimy head up out of the weeds and saying, yeah, you know what? Go ahead. Go get that MMR shot. Go get your kid. Go take him over. Sign him up for autism ASAP. The guy's a fraud.
As Christians in a Christian country, we have a right to be, at minimum, agnostic about the leadership being all Jewishly occupied.
We literally should be at war with fucking Israel 100 times over, and instead we're just sending them money, and it's fucking craziness.
Look at the state of Israel, look at the state of Tel Aviv, and look at the state of Philadelphia. You tell me where this money's going. You tell me who's benefiting from this.
I am prepared to die in the battle, fighting this monstrosity that would wish to enslave me and my family and steal away any rights to my property and to take away my God. Go fuck yourself. Will I submit to that?
And if you've got a foreign state, you've got dual citizens in your government, who do you think they're supporting?
God, right now, would you protect the nation of Israel and protect those of us, not just our church, but every church in the world and in this nation that's willing to put their neck on the line and say, we stand with them.
You can look at Trump's cabinet, you look at Biden's cabinet, it's full of Jews.
I have a black friend in school. I have nothing against blacks. She has nothing against me. She understands where I'm coming from.
Excuse me, I'm a Jew, and I just like to say that, you know, in our Bible it says that you're like animals.
The Jews crucified our God.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? Rise above mass surveillance and discover a phone that protects your privacy and communications.
Above Phone does everything your old phone does, without tracking you, while giving you complete control over your phone and apps. We are better than big tech. It works with any cell service. No forced logins. No advertising or tracking. Download apps privately. Control your phone and its apps with secure hardware. Introducing Above Suite. Includes a VPN, private email and calendar, private chats, video calls, internet phone, and a search engine. Don't worry if you're new. Every phone includes a free 45-minute live call. You also get free email and chat support, free guides, and video courses. You have the power.
Rise above with Above Phone.
AbovePhone.com.
Did you pray this morning that God would show you the demon that you need to slay today? Powerful stuff right there. God, please bring the demon into my presence. Show me the demon that I need to slay today. That's a prayer that every one of you warriors should be reciting. You should be begging God to display the demon. Put him on full display. Shine the light on the demon that I need to slay today. Let me prepare spiritually. Let me prepare intellectually. Let me prepare physically. Prepare yourself financially as well. Carlos Cortez is slaying the financial demons every day, aren't you?
Absolutely, spiritually and financially. So I love it. That is my prayer actually every morning, is show me the demon I can piss off today.
And you're just slamming it right now. I mean, your shot calls have been just like spot on. How do you do it?
I it's just experience, and I have an eye for it, and I could see the psyops actually discern the psyops before they actually even happen. And unfortunately, a lot of those psyops are for the right wingers to buy gold, to buy this, to buy that. And next thing you know, the hedge funds are laughing straight to the bank when you lose it. And the bro science that is out there saying, buy the dip, buy the dip. You're basically a clown like Dave Ramsey. This is what he preaches. You know, he uses a church model and thinks he is God's green earth to financial, consolidation. That's all he's good at, is basically teaching you get out of debt. But he's not a retirement planner. He's not a trader. He has no experience. And people are continuing to believe headlines that is their fuel.
America. Our food supply chain is hanging by a thread, and FEMA's warning is
to create financial success, and that's a big lie from the devil.
So when people go to CortezWM.com for Cortez Wealth Management, all they're doing here really is just booking a conversation with you, right? I mean, this isn't like some huge long appointment and it doesn't cost them anything. I mean, they're just having a conversation, introducing themselves to you, basically.
Yeah. And that's what it is. We go through our yellow, red, green money process. Stu, a lot of people have never been red pilled. They don't understand their own logic. And so it's very eye-opening. It's very red pilly conversation, because they don't even understand that they're in the stock market 100% with no bumper rails, with no safety, and that there's a new bucket of money called green money where your principal is protected. And then there's yellow money where we have traders like myself that actually watch your money every single day and trade for the manipulations. There's risk involved.
I can tell you firsthand, that's exactly what's going on.
Yep.
Because that's what Carlos does for me every single day. I don't have to watch it. I don't have to sweat it. We're praying for the stock market to crash because our positions are just so solid. It's going to. Interest rates. I mean, there's just so many different variables. Are they going to come down? Well, they have to. I mean, nobody's buying any houses. Nobody's buying any homes. Nobody can afford to. Interest rates, all the serious demons, they are on full display, and Carlos is slaying them on my behalf. And he could be on yours as well if you would just go to CortezWM.com and book that appointment. Get red-pilled financially. CortezWM.com. Again, CortezWM.com. You can also just call him in the office anytime at 813-448-3446. There's the number in the upper left. Again, 813-448-3446. Have the conversation. We'll be right back.
William Wallace. And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
So I'm just hearing right now, Frankie Stocks is in Washington, D.C. I send my guys from the Stu crew, from the Stu Peters Network, I send them into Washington, D.C. to do things. You saw one of the most viral things ever where Frankie went there. This guy is a real G, by the way. Frankie goes to Washington, and he approaches all of our owned and occupied so-called elected officials in Congress, and he asks them simply, just a very simple question, Congressman, who do you care more about, the American people or Israel? That's it. Just the one question. None of them could answer it. They grandstanded, they deflected, they gave word salads. A couple of them even dragged Frankie through the congressional elevator up to their offices and tried to convince him that having the Star of Remphan, which, by the way, the Star of David is not biblical. I challenge anybody to show me where that is. But this satanic star that's on this Israeli flag is all over the place, sometimes in the absence of the American flag. I mean, that's just being a traitor. Plain and simple. But anyway, I'm getting word right now that apparently Frankie has just been assaulted by a congressman for asking questions in the hallways of Congress. He said, this congressman put his hands on me, rather my camera, but I got it on video. So I'm interested to see exactly what it is that's going on there in D.C. because we're hearing a lot out of Washington. And here lately, we've been hearing a lot coming out of Washington about slashing government spending and firing useless and corrupt government workers. That would be a good one to start with. But these people have been they've done nothing their entire lives, their entire careers, except for leech off the American taxpayer. But what we're not hearing a whole lot about out of our government is what they're going to do about it. What are you going to do to lower the tax burden of everyday Americans once all of this spending is cut? And well, I hate to be a downer here, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler. I got to tell you, the reason why we're not hearing much about tax cuts is because there won't be any tax cuts. Yeah, sure. I mean, eventually we'll probably have a news cycle where we hear all about Mike Johnson and the heroic House of Representatives and Republicans and how they're fighting to lower your taxes and give you the distinct honor, the privilege of being allowed to keep a little bit more of your money. But then inevitably, of course, whatever spin the radical tax breaks and their Jewish-funded media want to tell you about it, all of the promises, they'll just fall. And then they'll just fall a few votes short. And if you end up with anything at all, it'll be negligible. This has really been the story of taxation in this country from the very beginning of the income tax. Taxes have always found a way to go up. Even when it's claimed that they're being lowered, somebody always ends up paying more. It's just a matter of whether it's your turn to get screwed over by the government, whether it's not your turn to get screwed over by the government, whether or not it's your turn to have your tax rate increased so that you can continue being forced to fund all of the treason and depravity and apparently congressional assaults taking place, all of the crap that we see every day in D.C., which has gotten a lot of people thinking, why don't we just defund this government like for real? Not one of these PSYOP defund the governments, not like wear a t-shirt, but why don't we actually just stop paying taxes, all of us? And I say that all the time, and so I know what a lot of you are thinking because I see it in the chat. If you stop paying taxes, the IRS will come and kick your door down and haul you off to federal prison. But actually, there is no federal law requiring you to pay income tax. So why the hell should we do it? The idea of a tax protest, that's about as American as it gets. This is something that our ancestors would have done. This is something that they did do in opposing their one-time British overlords. So just imagine what they would think if you woke up right now and they came back and they saw you paying 30 or 40% of your income to the feds. If they just rolled out of their graves and they could see the world today, how disappointed in you would they be? It doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. And that's why we're going to talk to Payman Mottahedeh. He's been here before. He's the founder of Freedom Law School. I mean, do you agree our ancestors would be so disappointed in us? Like, you're doing what? 30, 40, 50% of your money that you work for that is supposed to go to my great-great-great-granddaughter is being spent on the corruption in this government? You're funding your own demise. Why? And by the way, before you get started telling everybody how easy this is, before every revolution, what is there always? A tax revolt. Any big one of these revolutions has always started with a tax revolt. And it's really is that easy. So to the people in the chat that are like, yeah, right, Stu, you show us first. You stop paying your taxes, which, by the way, I haven't paid taxes. And by the way, the IRS isn't banging down my door and I haven't been hauled off to jail. Here I am. You haven't paid tax. How long has it been since you paid taxes?
Over 30 years. I've openly not filed and paid income taxes and been teaching Americans to do the same. And in over 23 years, I had a plan to protect us while working together. Not one of my students have gone to prison for taxes, for not filing and paying income taxes, nor IRS had taken their bank account, paycheck, or property.
People are going to ask, how's that even possible?
Because it's the same way that how is it possible that you don't get the corona vaccine jab and you don't get corona? Because the whole thing was based on the lie to begin with. There is no such thing as a corona. The jab is what gets you.
Last October, two neighbors, Robert and Jim, went on their usual morning walk. Both were family men.
You know, that's a really interesting analogy, actually, because you're totally right. All these people who are like double jabbed, triple boosted, they have scrupulously adhered to the letter of the recommendation of the CDC and our fake federal government, the murderous, genocidal psychopaths that they are, most of them on tape doing unthinkable acts with kids, and so they're compromised. So it's easy to get them to kill their own people in exchange for, you know, not being unalived themselves or promised more fortune and more power and more prominence. That's who these people are. It's really interesting that you draw that comparison because it's the people who try to scrupulously adhere to the letter of the law when it comes to tax law that are ones that are getting bent over the barrel the hardest and screwed the most.
Well, the ones that think they're adhering to the law.
Right. Yeah. This is what I mean.
That's what they've been told.
Yeah. The people who are voluntarily.
Income tax.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's no law on the books in the federal government that requires anybody to file and pay federal income taxes, is there? Unless you live in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
I didn't know that before Payman Mottahedeh at Freedom Law School, by the way. And so I just want you to go through it. When people go to your website or when people call you, how are they going to get started? How expensive is it? Is it going to cost them $100,000 to come and talk to you? If so, it's probably worth it. But just give our viewers the introductory lowdown on Payman Mottahedeh and Freedom Law School.
It's very simple. When they go to freedomlawschool.org/Stu, okay, they will see on the front page 7 steps to free yourself. Number one of ours, deception. It is with deception that they make you afraid. Once they get you afraid of the IRS, now they can rob you and enslave you. So the trick is to get rid of the deception that the IRS is this big monster that will eat you alive if you don't file and pay income taxes. Just like the corona lie, that if you don't take the jab, you're gonna get the corona, kill yourself and grandma. So you better get the jab. You better follow that 1040 tax form before all hell breaks loose. So once they see that, then they're gonna learn why they should not have any withholding from the paycheck. We can show them how to do this for free on our website. How they need to stop filing. How they don't need to be afraid of the IRS if they stop filing those 1040 income tax confession forms. That's the key thing that they got to do. And We have them for free petitions on our website to write the congressman, the lawmakers. Say, you wrote the tax law. Here it is, the Internal Revenue Code. I spell out for you why here no law requires me as a people of the 50 states to file and pay federal income taxes. Show me I'm wrong, and I will pay my fair share of taxes.
I think one of the most American things you can do is never pay taxes again.
Yep.
Honestly, I mean, never file taxes, never fill out their forms, never voluntarily, give everything up that you've worked hard for. And not only that, but you're not just giving it up. You can look around and see what it is that you're funding. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon producing hundreds of millions of pounds in bombs to go and be dropped on innocent people. Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca manufacturing billions of different vials filled with a bioweapon, a weapon of biowarfare, serum with nanotechnology and DNA-altering genetic poisons in it, the clot shot from hell. These are the things that we're funding, and a whole lot of other things, obviously. Transgenderism in your schools, everything. Everything that you look at that's ill, because the government is not a for-profit business and they don't earn their own paycheck, they steal yours. And you do it voluntarily. They don't even just steal it. You give it to them. You go to your job every day, and when you first get hired, you sign on the form saying, well, in exchange for my hard work, I think what I'll do is, I'll give 30% of everything to you. Is that okay? Is that okay with you? Can I do that? Is that fine? Well, I'm self-employed. My business did really well this year. So you know what, government? I'm going to send you more. Because I did really well, I think I'm just going to send you more. That's what you're doing. You're voluntarily, stupidly, ignorantly, because you don't understand this and you've never thought about this before, you have been programmed to believe that you have to do it or you're going to jail. You have been programmed to believe that you have to do it or they're going to seize your home and repossess your car and take all of your assets and drain your bank accounts and send you off to the gulag without due process, because that's what our federal government has shown that it will do. But guess what? They can't do it. They cannot throw you in jail if you're outside of DC. If you go to freedomlawschool.org/Stu, if you hook up with Payman Motaheda, he can teach you how to do this, and it's really super easy. It really honestly is. I'm sorry, I'm getting frustrated when I'm talking about this because I'm thinking about all of the people who voluntarily do this, and it really pisses me off. There should be no reason why 100% of you, 100% of this viewing audience, don't go right now to freedomlawschool.org/Stu. There should be no reason that you don't have this conversation, this introductory conversation with Payman Motaheda, because he's absolutely right. The book that he just held up, all of the years of experience, 30 years not filing or paying federal income taxes, and here he is joining the show. Here he is every single week on this program trying to do the same for you, trying to do the same for your family, trying to show you that, yeah, there is no law in the books that requires you to file and pay federal income taxes. It's time for you to learn that. Go to freedomlawschool.org and you'll get a special deal if you add the /Stu. freedomlawschool.org/Stu. We'll be right back.
Don't let the IRS rob you. Where is your money going? Over 4 million government credit cards by federal employees were used to make 90 million transactions with no accountability. DOJ has found $4.7 trillion in federal spending that is untraceable or fraudulent. You work hard to pay your bills, and a significant portion of your money is funneled to thieves and fraudsters through the taxes you pay to the IRS. The IRS wants you to feel powerless. Be a slave that shuts up and give them them your hard-earned money, but there is a way out of this slavery. Freedom Law School has been teaching Americans for over 30 years that no law requires 99% of Americans to file and pay income tax. None of their students who have stopped paying have gone to prison or had their bank account or property stolen by the IRS. Go to freedomlawschool.org today to take 7 steps to freedom from IRS deception, robbery, and slavery. For freedom, go to freedomlawschool.org today.
So RFK Jr. is heading up Health and Human Services, and of course we have Elon Musk, who's heading up DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, looking into all of the unnecessary spending. How about we look into spraying the skies with poison? How about we look into weather modification? Yeah, it's not a secret anymore. We've all seen them spraying the skies. You can go outside and see the perfectly crisscrossed patterns. This mysterious fog that appeared, you guys remember that? People were just getting sick all over the place. Bioweapons being sprayed in the sky. We've seen graphene oxide samples, and now deadly bacteria is found in this deadly fog. You're getting poisoned everywhere. And so, of course, the old playbook is make it impossible to get real treatments that actually help you and instead push you to big pharma, scare the hell out of you, and make you go get a deadly injection. No, not anymore. Remember ivermectin? It was hard to get to. Remember hydroxychloroquine? It was hard to get to. Doxycycline, dexamethasone, all of the things that actually treated people that were demonized by the murderous press. It's all available right here, right now, in the emergency kit that I've been telling you about.
America. Our food supply chain is hanging by a thread, and FEMA's warning is clear.
Get the ivermectin, get the hydroxychloroquine, the dexamethasone, get it all right here in this travel-sized case. It's ready to go. Guidebook for safe and easy use inside of this thing, putting urgent care right at your fingertips. Plus, it includes the immunity-boosting Z-Sac nutraceutical, giving your body the extra defense that it needs on the daily, whether it's a sudden bacterial infection or a bioweapon attack, maybe a respiratory illness or something more severe. The Z-Kit has you covered. The purchasing process is fully digital. All it takes, just fill out a quick little digital form. Within 1 to 2 weeks, your kit arrives at your front door, just as mine did at mine. Don't let illnesses and bioweapons catch you off guard. Order your Z-Kit right now at the famous zstackprotocol.com. Go to zstackprotocol.com and then use code SPN to save up to $48 plus get free shipping. Up to $48 off plus free shipping for this. It was hard to get ivermectin, remember? It probably will be again. Hydroxychloroquine, dexamethasone, doxycycline, all of these things are included right here, plus a guide for safe use. Go to zstackprotocol.com and use the promo code SPN. $48 off plus free shipping, and because we're America first and America only, it's available to American residents only. zstackprotocol.com. Hands down, my favorite feature about this whole Stu Crew setup that we have going here is the 24-hour live chat. I love being in there. Early access to documentary films, the introductory clinic for novice noticers, behind the scenes and off the record segments, $9 a month, and we cannot do it without you. Become a member of Stu Crew. Go to stupeters.com or click on the red Stu Crew button below any one of our Rumble videos. Be the most important part of this army. We cannot do it without you. So the release of the JFK files, no matter how censored or redacted they were by the time they got to the American people, have triggered a renewed interest in what exactly it was that happened. Who's truly and really responsible for the broad daylight murder of our president in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. And since the very day that that assassination happened, the American people, actually really the entire world for that matter, have been sold a completely bullshit story that we all know to be completely and totally fake and gay. Some goofy, socially retarded communist called Lee Harvey Oswald, who was pissed off at America, pissed off at President Kennedy, just took it upon himself, all on his lonesome, with no help at all whatsoever from any government agency. And he just climbed up into the 6th story of that Texas school book depository, took up a perfect position in an already open window, and then fired 3 shots with a bolt-action rifle in extremely quick succession, hitting President Kennedy and others with a single magic bullet, by the way, forever changing the course of history. And of course, Oswald, as we all know, he was killed, so he couldn't tell his side of the story. He barely lived long enough to be interrogated by the police. Because, yeah, just 2 days after he was arrested, Oswald himself was assassinated by a Jew. a Jewish pornographer and strip club owner called Jacob Rubenstein, also known as Jack Ruby. I wonder why they changed his name. Why do a lot of these Jews change their name? We know you're a Jew. So as far as getting any real answers on JFK, or any kind of real investigation into what actually happened and who was responsible for it, that all came to a halt when Oswald was killed. It was the perfect excuse to just drop the investigation. Just let the feds put a nice little bow on it. Oswald did it. That's it. Then Congress, they launched the completely phony, fake, and gay Warren Commission. Every one of these committee hearings, every one of these inquiries that the government sets up, oh, we're going to have a GOP inquiry on that. When was the last time any of that helped you? They cooked up their magic bullet theory. They told the American people there's nothing to see here, just like they've done with COVID, just like they're doing now with Gaza, just like they do with Hitler, just like they do with the Holocaust. I mean, the list goes on and on. The murder of your president was just an isolated incident, the work of one man and one man alone. And after Kennedy was killed and Johnson took office, more than 50,000 Americans lost their lives in Vietnam. Don't worry about that. Our borders were just opened wide up. Our nation's demographics were turned upside down. Old stock Americans were betrayed by their government over and over and over again. And now, here we are. So many of the things that we have seen in our lives, none of that would have happened had Kennedy lived. When President John F. Kennedy was murdered, the Federal Reserve, the Jewish pariah state of Israel, all of their owned and operated government Shabbos goys here in the United States, well, they just completed their takeover. And they sent a message to anyone else who would ever think about standing up and really serving the American people, because the last president who did that was murdered. And still, even after the JFK file release, the truth about whatever happened that day, it's pretty hard to come by. Even though Congress and people like Anna Paulina Luna, a Jewish stripper, are telling us they've launched some major investigation to finally get to the bottom of all of this, well, Jim Fetzer says that's not what's happening. And in reality, Jim says, Congress is just putting on a show, bringing in high-profile people to testify like Oliver Stone, who's done no research at all whatsoever into any of this, talking about 60-year-old information, things that were already known. Jim Fetzer says the real truth is being covered up. He's here to join us in just a second, but Jim Fetzer is an expert on the JFK assassination. He's written 4 books on this topic. He has a lot to say about it. So to that end, here he is. Jim, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Well, right off the bat, I brought together World Authority on the Human Brain, who's also an expert on wound ballistics, a PhD in physics, also an MD board certified in radiation oncology. One of the physicians who was in Parkland Hospital that day, the last to see the president wrapping his body in sheets, closing his eyes as he was put into the bronze ceremonial casket. Another PhD with a background in electromagnetism, who's studied the Zapruder film and found while it's 98% technically perfect, the other 2% give it away. We found the autopsy x-rays were altered to conceal a massive blowout at the back of the head. Another brain was substituted. They even used a completely different body stew for some of the autopsy photographs. They altered the bullet hole, the blowout at the back of the head at Bethesda using a cranial saw. Commander Hume's in charge, enlarged the wound so that it would look like something that might have happened from a shot from behind if you were to lean way forward. And in addition, they edited out a limo stop, which actually took place after Jack had been hit twice in the back by a shot fired from the top of the county records building, in the throat by a shot fired from inside the triple underpass that passed through the windshield. The limousine was brought to a halt. Jack was then hit 3 times in the back of the head. He slumped forward. Jack eased him back up. Then he was hit in the right temple and near simultaneous in the side of the head, blowing his brains out the back all over the trunk, hitting a patrolman in the back left rear so hard he thought he himself had been shot. It's all been covered up. The very time the death was announced, Stu, just to show you how bad it is, Malcolm Kilduff, the acting press secretary, said it was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head while pointing to his right temple. Well, where did that go in the Warren Commission, which said there were only 3 shots fired from behind and above? What happened to the shot from the front? And then on radio and television that day, Stu, the whole day, they were repeating again and again detailed information about the shot to the throat, a small, clean puncture wound. Malcolm Perry, MD, who'd performed a simple tracheostomy incision 3 times, reported it had been a wound of entry. The bullet was coming at him. And they reported that wound to the temple, attributed it to Admiral George Berkeley, the president's personal physician. This was all over the television. So when later in the
drink this dental soft mineral before going to bed to rebuild your gums and teeth almost overnight. Okay.
Evening, as the story starts to dribble in, that the Secret Service and FBI have concluded there were 3 shots only from above and behind. That Jack had been hit in the back, that Connolly had been hit in the back, and Jack had been hit in the back of the head, killing him. Frank McGee, who's nobody's fool, says this is incongruous. How can the man have been shot from in front, which they'd been reporting all day, from behind? That bad.
There are 80-some thousand pages of these JFK files that my team and myself have tirelessly been poring over. All of the information that you just said, is it within these files that we're dissecting that were just released by the Trump administration?
It is not, Stu. It's stunning. But I'll tell you something, in the earlier release...
So wait, so Jim, just for clarification, have you poured over all 80,000 pages of these documents that were just released by Trump?
I have not personally, but I have colleagues who are doing just that, Stu. And they poured over the earlier and discovered studied evidence about the Mexico City visit. Remember, the claim that Lee was doing this because he was a communist sympathizer pro-Castro, that he'd gone to Mexico City to get a visa to make an escape back to the Soviet Union by way of Cuba, was a total fabrication, all made up by the CIA. They had an imposter down there claiming to be Lee Oswald. J. Edgar even put out a memorandum saying someone was in Mexico City impersonating Lee Oswald. And get this, Stu, we now have a clean scan of the passport the Dallas PD made when they took his personal effects from his room on Beckley. And it shows, Stu, guess what? Not valid for travel to Cuba. The whole story was a total fraud. And among the assets of the CIA were 3 presidents of Mexico.
Okay. So where is all of this evidence that corroborates all of the things that you were saying, aside from the clearly scanned image of this passport that was not eligible for travel to Cuba?
Well, I have the 4 books that shattered the cover-up: Assassination Science, 1998, Murder in Dealey Plaza, 2000, and The Great Zapruder Film Hoax, 2003.
So, I mean, I understand the books. I know that you have the 4 books and we have the 80,000 pages in files. Where are the citations? What are the citations for the books?
Oh, it's all there, Stu. It's all there. The very first, which went through 14 printings, includes, for example, the Bethesda autopsy report, where you can describe in mathematical detail this huge gaping wound to the back of the head. David Lifton, in his book Best Evidence, 1980.
How many people had to be involved with this cover-up?
Oh, lots. They spent more time on the cover-up than they did the assassination.
So all of these people that were in on this cover-up to this day have just never come forward?
Well, listen, it was very elaborate, Stu. There were 8 different sponsors of the assassination. Each of them had their own shooter. The CIA had a shooter. He was on the grassy knoll. He had a pistol. He would have hit Jackie, so he had to pull his shot, wound up in the grass, picked up by a Dallas lieutenant, and disappeared. The Mafia had a shooter. He was at the intersection of the triple underpass and the grassy knoll, fired the shot that entered the right temple. The anti-Castro Cubans had a shooter. He had a Mannlicher Cano on the 2nd floor of the Daltex. there's a window for the broom closet of a uranium mining operation. He fired 3 shots with a Mannlicher Carcano, which were the only unsilenced shots, and had 2 misses. One hit a distant curbing, injured a bystander named James Tague. The other hit a chrome strip above the windshield. But the third, after the driver brought the limousine to a halt, hit Jack in the back of the head. The shot to the throat was fired by the Joint Chief shooter. He was an Air Force expert who was using a weapon given to him by Curtis, by the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, who was absolutely fanatic about JFK, so we know he was acting on behalf of the government. Lyndon Johnson had his own personal hitman in the book depository, firing at John Connally in the mistaken belief that it was Ralph Yarborough, a Texas liberal senator he despised. They had a big fight, he and JFK, that morning. He wanted to get Connally out, Yarborough in, and Jack overrode him on the ground that the chief
Sounds like a total
executive
show. It sounds like a completely disorganized total show. How did they coordinate all this? Did each shooter know where each shooter was, or that each shooter was there?
Well, the coordinator appears to be Edward Lansdale, Air Force general responsible for assassination around the world. So he appears to have positioned the shooters and determined the sequence of shots. But what happens to, they were all like a blood oath, because each of them had a shooter. They could know if one were exposed to others. The fellow, the CIA shooter, Roscoe White, who also impersonated Lee in the backyard photographs, may have killed as many as 50 witnesses. They were serious about keeping this sewn up tight. And you had FBI all over the place who were watching all the spectators, taking their photographs, subjecting them to interrogation. And if they protested, like Jean Hill, who was with Mary Mormon, her friend, taking Polaroid photographs, and then Jean would coat them with preservatives. They came out, they took the photographs, they took Jean to interrogation, asked her how many shots. She heard 4 or 5, but they said, no, that's impossible. There were only 3. They stationed FBI agents at all the photo processing labs around Dallas for 2 weeks. And any photo or film related to the assassination they took and left a little card saying the government has taken it as evidence.
So what's your hypothesis here on why? Why did all of these individual people want JFK dead?
Well, the CIA, of course, he was threatening to shatter it into 1,000 pieces, so they wanted to preserve their control. The Joint Chiefs were upset because he'd not invaded Cuba, contrary to their unanimous recommendation. He'd signed an above-ground test ban treaty with the Soviets against their unanimous opposition. Now he was pulling our forces out of Vietnam, where they felt a stand had to be taken against the expansion of international godless communism. The mob was upset. They may have thought they had an agreement with Joe, but they didn't with Bobby or Jack, who were cracking down on organized crime, bringing more indictments and convictions than ever before. The anti-Castro Cubans thought they'd been betrayed at the Bay of Pigs. The Fed was worried because Jack had instructed the Department of Treasury to print United States notes. As a young Marine Corps officer, I held one of these with a red embossed imprint saying United States note instead of green. He thought it was absurd that the government should pay an interest to a consortium of private banks to print the currency of the United States, but it could be done by the Department of Treasury for nothing. And most of our national debts do is interest on interest to the Fed. It's simply absurd. Then you had the Texas oilmen worried Jack was going to cut the oil depletion allowance. Their shooter was a deputy sheriff who was an excellent shot. You had Israel threw in a shooter of its own. He came down from Toronto. They were upset because Jack was at loggerheads with David Ben-Gurion about Israel's desire to develop nukes, which Jack opposed on the ground it would initiate a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. So Ben-Gurion appears to have resigned in disgust after assigning Mossad to participate in the assassination, where, by the way, it appears that Lyndon, who was behind the whole thing, who forced himself on the ticket in Los Angeles in 1960 to accede to the presidency when Jack was taken out, recruited Alan Dulles, whom Jack had retired with fanfare, in the wake of Biggs' investigation by RFK and Maxwell Taylor, we discovered he'd been completely deceived, that the CIA had learned that the Soviets knew the date of the invasion. They'd shared it with Castro, so everyone knew what was.
Let's talk about ivermectin. For decades, it's been a trusted FDA-approved medication to treat parasitic infections.
Happening except the commander-in-chief, and Jack was furious with him. So, you know, these are motives that were very, very powerful. And by virtue of all coming together, it was like a Murder on the Orient Express, Stu. It was a classic. You'd start, you know, beating up one trail. Castro had nothing to do with it. The Soviets had nothing to do with it. But just ask yourself, could the mafia have extended its reach into Bethesda Naval Hospital to alter x-rays under control of medical officers of the U.S. Navy and Secret Service? No. Could the KGB have substituted another brain for the brain of JFK? No. Could any of these groups who got a hold of the Zapruder film to massively edit it and then make a substitution? If Representative Luna wants to have the facts about JFK, there are 5 individuals she should interview. David Bandig, the leading expert on the medical evidence in the world today. Douglas Horn, who is a senior analyst for military records for the ARRB. Bandig discovered the autopsies and x-rays had been altered. Doug, how they'd made a substitution of another film. John Costello, who's done study of the Zapruder film and can prove from internal features of the film that it's a fabrication. Larry Rivera, who did the research on Mexico City and discovered that the visa, his passport wasn't even eligible to go, and also discovered the limo stop. Or get this, Stu, after bringing the limousine to a halt, the one motorcycle officer, Bobby Harvest, ran between the 2 vehicles up to the grassy knoll in pursuit of the shooters he thought were there behind the picket fence. Officer Douglas Jackson motored up on the grassy knoll until his bicycle fell over, and then he proceeded on foot. 5 agents got out of the limousine and surrounded the Kennedy car. One took a chunk of skull from the little boy, threw it in the back seat. It's this triangular chunk known as a Harper fragment. And another, get this, dude, this is practically unknown, named Glenn Bennett actually climbed in the limousine at that point in time to make sure Jack was dead. There was even a second follow-up stop before getting on the Stemmons Freeway to go to Parkland to verify the man was no longer alive. This was very thorough. They stole the body, they altered the body, they kept it under military control, they took the photographs and films, they either disappeared or they altered them. We have a most famous photograph by AP photographer James I. Calchin of the entire motorcade, and you see a doorway in the background and there's a figure leaning out. Turns out to have been Lee Oswald. He's got the same height, weight, build, shirt, overshirt. They actually altered the film. There's a guy behind him known as Black Tie Man who's in front of him and behind him. They altered another figure, took out his face. He's holding his hands up to protect his eyes from the sun. They blotted out his shirt because his name is Billy Lovelady. The Warren Commission would claim it was Billy Lovelady in the doorway. Well, Billy Lovelady was in the doorway, but he wasn't the doorman. He was leaning out to see what happened. They were so self-conscious about Oswald having been in the doorway when they did the mugshot, they had him take off his overshirt. And by the way, Marina remembers having washed that shirt. He brought it back from Russia. So since Lee was in the doorway and can't have fired any shot, he can't be the lone gunman. He can't be one of there turned out to have been 8 shooters, Stu, and I can give you a name, rank, and serial number for 7 of the 8. The one that remains is on a tree opposite the grassy knoll. You wouldn't think there was even room for a shooter to be there. But I've seen photographs in the possession of 2 experts. He's standing, holding his rifle. He was there. I simply don't know yet his name or the shot he took, if any, or whatever that may have had, which I have for all the others.
All right. Well, obviously, a 21-minute segment here on the Stu Peters Network isn't enough to dive into all of this. So where can people get all of this information, and what should we be passing on to, or they should be passing on to, Anna Paulina Luna?
Yes. the four books, because I have a fourth book, JFK, Who, How, and Why, brings up to date about Lee being proven in the doorway, which was already known by the Warren Commission staff, by the way, Stu. In the last 4 pages of Harold Weisberg's Whitewash 2, photographic whitewash, they talk about the trouble they had concealing that Lee was in the doorway. So those 4 books, but then if you just go on to BitChute and do Jim Fetzer, JFK, you're going to have hundreds of videos. A classic is JFK Special, 18 November 2001, which I dedicated to Oliver Stone. And another more recent is JFK, Who Was Responsible and Why.
All right, there it is. Search Jim Fetzer, JFK on BitChute. We appreciate you coming on, by the way. I mean, it's a lot to take in, obviously. This is the first that I've heard of a lot of these things. And, you know, being inundated with all of these files, I realize the reason why they put these files out. I realize the way that they did it and the purpose behind doing all of that. We're going to put 80,000 pages that are not in any kind of order. You can't keyword search. That feature has been disabled from the website altogether. It's not in chronological order. It doesn't make any sense. And that's by design. They don't want people really looking into these 80,000 pages of what happened. I did see where it said, the Jews are bad, the Jews are responsible. I can also take a look at motive and say, well, this guy wanted AIPAC to register as a foreign agent, and he didn't want Israel to have nukes. I think that that's a pretty big deal with serious implications and apparently serious repercussions as well, because now he's dead. And of course, to this day, AIPAC still is not registered as a foreign agent.
That's right, Stu. And bringing in Oliver Stone and this Eugenio guy, I mean, Oliver hasn't done any research on JFK for 30 years. Yeah. Jim DiEugenio was never on top of anything. So they had the wrong people there. If they want to know the truth, I've got them here. They're willing to testify, glad to line them up and get the truth out to the American people.
All right. Jim Fetzer, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Stu.
All right. Yeah, these are the times where I wish that we had 20 hours instead of 20 days. A lot of questions that I didn't get to ask him, of course, because we're limited at time. And I'm only one guy with a whole lot of interviews to do. We want to dive into everything. I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. And again, it's all by design to keep your mind focused on this distraction or that. So find Jim Fetzer on BitChute. Search Jim Fetzer JFK. We'll be right back. I'm going to ask you for your undivided attention because I'm going to tell you about what could possibly be the most important life-saving supplement that I have ever talked about. It's called Cardio Miracle. Each serving of Cardio Miracle has a combination of over 50 high-quality ingredients, including a huge variety of fruits, vegetables, amino acids, and herbs, all of which come together to promote your body's ability to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is so important for heart health. It helps to relax and dilate your blood vessels, which supports blood flow and circulation. And I love that you don't have to take this giant pill to get all of this nutrition. No, Cardio Miracle comes in a powder formula, so it's really easy to mix all day throughout the day into juice or water and take it at any time. That also helps to support mood regulation because it's a neurotransmitter. It's a neuromodulator in the brain. So it can support the release of serotonin and dopamine, both of which are really important and involved in mood regulation. Cardio Miracle also supports mental clarity, sleep quality, energy levels. It can even help with recovery after exercise. Nitric oxide is essential for so many functions in the body, and Cardio Miracle supports the production of nitric oxide so you get many benefits from just one supplement. Please go to highpowerheart.com. Again, highpowerheart.com. I'm telling you, this could quite possibly be the most important supplement that I will ever talk about. Cardio Miracle. Go to highpowerheart.com.
AirWaterHealing.com is the leading manufacturer in filterless air purification systems. Whether you're dealing with pollen or mold or dust, shedding from your pet or vaccinated neighbors, mRNA spike protein shedding, AirWaterHealing.com has solutions for every scenario at home, at work, or on the go. Breathe with confidence. Don't let your air suck. Rest well knowing that your home is protected 24/7. So now you can get a unit for your home or a portable unit for on-the-go travel. That's airwaterhealing.com. Use promo code STU for 10% off when you go to airwaterhealing.com.